Some of us have been here for an hour and a half on risk management, so we're raring to go. Now, apologies for absence. We've got Councillor Lawrence O'Donnell.
That's right.
No one else. So we're quorate, aren't we?
You are, sir.
We are quorate. Good, thank you. I should just mention that Karen is looking after us this morning and Andrea's not too well, so I think we'll send our best wishes to her. So I have the minutes of the meeting of the 26th of November. I'm not planning to go through it in detail. As we've discussed in the past, the minutes are a record of what was discussed. And no more. So it's not about reopening a discussion we had. That's not the purpose of agreeing the minutes. I did note, however, that there was a commitment to produce a report. And I don't know if we've seen that report. Councillor Dale, can you enlighten us? Not the report that you were supposed to write, but a report you requested.
Oh, sorry. Have a look. I think it's in the back. Is it on the in the work that was meant? There were two. One was the
One was the
thing
Treasury
about
Management Strategy Statement, and it said a short note could be produced for members.
Oh, on small projects.
Yeah.
Yes, and also there was one about the Ombudsman report.
Yeah.
But I think they're in the back. Are they in the action list?
Yeah, but my query is, I'm not sure we've received those reports.
I haven't,
Right,
Chair. I haven't
okay.
received them.
So, Karen, we'll make sure that those reports are done and circulated to the committee. Yeah.
Chair, if I may,
Janet, good
I
morning.
believe the point about Treasury management performance and how it's reported, that is actually covered in the Treasury Management Strategy report that the committee have in front of them today. So we haven't prepared a separate report on that. It is incorporated in the main Treasury Management Strategy report, which sets out all of those arrangements. If there is further information that Councillor Dale wants, which is not covered in that report, perhaps we can pick it up when we come to that item.
I think that's sensible. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Other than that, are we content with the minutes from the previous meeting? Agreed? Do I need a proposer and a seconder for that?
I think just general consensus.
General consent. Good. Okay. Thank you. Right. Moving on, disclosure of members' interests. As always, Stephen Gerrard, to my left, our Director of Law and Corporate Governance, and also our monitoring officer is available to answer any queries. Are there any queries from members? No. Good. Karen, I've just noticed that Dr. Green, Stewart, isn't with us.
That's correct, Chair.
Right, so we don't, right, okay. Right, we don't know if he's coming later or...
Apologies for them, no.
Okay, fine, never mind. Moving on, we're getting into the main purpose of the meeting. So we have the statement of accounts, and we have Councillor Nick Oliver, the Cabinet Member for this area, who's going to introduce, and Jan, as Executive Director of Transformation and Resources, will be in assistance. I think Phil Hunter is also with us, no?
He's not, Chair.
He's not, okay. I've been misinformed. Never mind, we can get through this. So this is the statement of accounts for the period ending 31st of March 2025, and also the annual governance statement for that year. I would remind members that, unless my memory fails me, we've seen a draft of the governance statement at I think it was our August meeting. Is that right? Yeah. And I think we've seen a draft of the statement of accounts. So this is a final version that we're looking at this morning. Right. Councillor Oliver, do you want to introduce this for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You've got 5 in a row from me this morning, so I'm going to be deliberately brief on all of them to spare everybody. As you've said, the statement of accounts have already been considered by this committee, as has the annual governance statement. So this is really more of a sort of formal procedural item for us to, sorry, not for us, for you as Audit Committee to sort of sign them off and formally recommend them to Council. So I think just a couple of sort of key points really, and then I think I'll ask Jan if she wants anything to add anything, and then we'll just sort of throw it up to questions. It's important, I think, to notice that we are on time. And which is great, and you know it's I think the deadline is the end of January, so you know I think that in terms of the delays that we've had in previous years for various reasons, that's a significant improvement. It's an unqualified auditor's report, which is also a very positive step, and there are no significant weaknesses to report as well. So. The annual government statement has been previously discussed in this committee, and I think Appendix 1 I found a particularly useful document because obviously the accounts are very long and there's a lot of technical information in there, but Appendix 1 sort of sets out the summary of the contents very well, and then the actual governance statement and the accounts are appended. So I'll just sort of ask Jan now if there's anything she feels she needs to add. Otherwise, we'd be very happy to take any questions.
Yeah, and Jan, before you come in, I think some of us have not had the opportunity to read the statement of accounts in as much time as we'd hoped. So if you can preface what you were going to say with any explanatory remarks, that would be helpful. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the process that we follow is the draft accounts are presented to the committee around June time. They are then subject to external audit. Amendments are made to the accounts based on issues that arise as part of brought back to the committee for approval, and that's what you have in front of you today. So there have been some non-material adjustments that have been identified and are set out in the audit completion report that you had at your meeting back in November. There are no material changes, and as Councillor Oliver has said, the intention is that the external auditor will issue an unqualified opinion. So what the committee are being asked today is to approve the final amended accounts, which are not materially different from the draft accounts that the committee received back in June.
Okay. Right. So let's deal with the statement of accounts first, and then we'll do the annual governance statement. So queries, taking account of what Jan's just said, that we did have the opportunity to look at this in August, although that was the first meeting for many members of this committee. But anyway, questions on the statement of accounts. Councillor Dale.
Yeah, thank you. And just to say thank you, it's been quite difficult because we've only got the papers quite late. I was actually got some of the main papers early, but not the rest so late. Can I just ask you, at the meeting on the 26th of November, on page 7 of the minutes said that there was a misstatement regarding the 106 agreements, which were under reserves at the time. And I just wondered if that had changed in the statement of accounts, because I haven't had time to look at the new ones. And as that was no longer, well, it was a misstatement. And obviously, if it's a nearly sort of for 24-25, it's nearly £25 million. So I would call it material. So basically, what I was going to say is, if that is a case that comes out of reserves, that is very different about the internal borrowing and looking forward. So I just don't know where that sits, and I think it would be important that it's noted. And I can't. It sounds awful. I can't find it in the thing. So if the council, somebody could explain where that money's gone, or if it's still sitting there, and it was acknowledged that you'd actually corrected the misstatement from the year before. So I just want to know exactly what's happening with that.
Right.
So, Chair, would you like me to answer that question? So it's a reclassification.
Yep.
So the money is still there. It's just a reclassification. It does not impact on the borrowing requirement in any shape or form, because the borrowing requirement is based on our cash position. This is merely a reclassification for the purposes of the balance sheet.
Thank you. That does help, because obviously I couldn't find it in the statement of accounts, and I don't know where it's gone, but maybe...
Well, we'll be happy after the meeting to show you exactly where that is now, Councillor Dale.
Okay. I was going to ask Mr. Kirkham, is there anything you wanted to say at this stage?
Happy to, Chair. The reference is made to an audit adjustment, and we referred to that in our audit completion report, and it was an adjusted misstatement, so the accounts that are with the committee date have been corrected for that misstatement. So in audit terms, this is an adjusted misstatement, and Jan is quite correct to say that this was merely a classification matter rather than something more serious. It's certainly not the case that funds are missing. There's nothing to be concerned about. It's just classification in the balance sheet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on the statement of accounts? Nope. Okay. So I'm just going to move us on to the annual governance statement. And my recollection from the meeting we had last August was we did ask the question about key performance indicators. So that's going to come up. But Councillor Oliver, do you want to say anything by way of introduction?
I don't think it's necessary, Chair. I mean, I think because if it was the first time this committee was seeing the annual governance statement, I would, but I would only be repeating what I said last time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to move us on to the KPI question. Councillor Dale.
Yes, I was just going to... I think last August, I did say I'd like to see more performance indicators as evidence, so we can give assurance that the government statement is correct. So I did go back, just to be boring, to 21-22, where in the statement of accounts it has the written statement and narrative report, which actually includes performance, but it also has the top 15 key performance indicators, and these sit in the statement of accounts. So they haven't appeared, I haven't got the next year's, they haven't appeared since then, but they do give an indication about the council's targets and their actual performance against the KPIs. And, you know, there are a lot of reds and a lot of some greens and some ambers. And I think it's important for us that we see that in the statement of accounts, because that does give us assurance of what the government statement is saying. So could we look at that for next year, please?
Yeah, could I comment?
Yeah,
I
of
think,
course.
I mean, I absolutely understand your interest in performance indicators and understanding how the council is performing. I'm not sure the annual government's statement is the place to report on that. There are performance indicator reports in other scrutiny committees, and they do get reported. You know, there are reports to Cabinet as well. So, I mean, I don't know whether Jan wants to sort of comment on the performance indicators sort of reporting mechanism, but it is something that is, and I think something comes to this committee as well. But I wouldn't say the governance statement would be the place to, because this is really, the governance statement is about the governance framework of the council and actually reporting on the individual you know, performance indicators. I think this is really about the mechanisms and the framework being in place to do that, and just giving some satisfaction that that's the case, not actually reporting on individual performance metrics.
Well, I think what we'll do at this stage is we've lodged with you the point. So I think rather than debate it further now,
Yeah.
it's something we can, when you're producing the next annual governance statement, we can give some thought to how do we address the point. Because I think what we're not looking for is to go through a set of KPIs, but they do provide the evidence that supports some of the assertions made in the governance statement. That's, I think, the point. Councillor Dale, are we happy to leave that for the moment?
Managing performance in the Notice report adequately links to the quarterly cabinet reports, so it doesn't set on.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the annual governance statement? Okay. So members, what we're being asked to approve is the statement of accounts for the financial year 24-25, the annual governance statement for the same year, and also that if there are any issues that come up from the external auditor's follow-up letter, that we delegate authority to Jan as Executive Director of Transformation and Resources to resolve those. So those three points we're being asked to approve. Are we content? Yep. Right. Thank you, members. And we look forward to the next version of the next annual governance statement later in the year. Thank you. Right. I'm going to move us on to item 5, and this, without being dismissive in any way, my understanding of this is a briefing on the timetable and some of the changes to the accounting policies for the coming year. So it's something that we're being asked to note, rather than necessarily debate accounting policies. Although if there are questions, then we will take them. Councillor Oliver, again.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I mean, this is an annual report. It's part of the process. It comes before the committee every year. As you've said, it sets out the timetable. It sets out the key accounting changes. They are accounting changes that we basically have to accept. It's the framework to which the accounting is done, and it sets out the accounting policies. The only thing I would probably note is that you'll see that the timetable for the current year is January 27, and then in following years it moves forwards 2 months to November each year. So that was the only sort of notable point that I picked out, but I'm very happy to answer any questions. I'll try to.
Okay. Jan, is there anything you want to add to that introduction?
Nothing from me, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any queries? Councillor Swinburne.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that subject, Councillor Oliver, that is might only sound 2 months, but that is quite a significant reduction in timescale. And I just want to check, is that achievable by our staff, or is it going to be, you know, put quite a strain on the staff that we have to be able to achieve that? And also, with the involvement of the external auditors, is that reduction in time frame, are we going to be able to manage that? That's just what I needed to know.
Yeah, well, I can't. I think it's probably better to let Jan comment on that. But you're quite right to point out it is sort of multiple parties involved in the process. So it's the finance team at the council, as well as the audit team and the external auditors. So I'm sure they will have a very clear plan and a timetable. Well, the timetable is sort of set out, but there'll be a sort of a more detailed timetable in terms of provision of information and things to drive towards those deadlines. And I'm sure there'll be lots of discussions happening over the next 12 months, getting ready for that change the following year. But I'm very happy to, you know, if Jan, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, just to say that it always used to be the case that the deadline was the end of September, and then it was put back to November post-COVID, partly because of the impact of COVID on within that time scale, but also external audit capacity. So this is the system returning to normal. We've, you know, it is challenging, but we've done it in previous years. I have no reason to believe that we won't be able to do it going forwards.
Okay. Well, Councillor Swinburne, is that level of assurance is enough for today, I think. Any other questions? Otherwise, we're being asked to note the key dates in the process, note some changes in the code of practice, approve the accounting policies, and again authorise Jan as necessary to review the accounting policies and report any changes back to us. Can we agree those recommendations? Simon.
So one question, please.
Yeah.
The report mentions 12 changes to the Code of Practice, but it doesn't give any context with regard to whether they are favourable or disadvantageous. So is this just another iteration of the Code of Practice, or is there some headwind coming? So is it too early to determine that?
That's a good question. Jan, can you help us on that one?
Well, I wouldn't describe them as either advantageous or disadvantageous. They just are what they are. It's routine for, you know, changes to be made to the accounting code of practice, you know, and the team, you know, are used to dealing with these things. I know that Chris Harvey, head corporate finance, is in the chamber. I don't know if there's anything that Chris particularly wants to pick out in terms of materiality of those changes this time.
Thanks, Jan. Yeah, I think the main changes were to do with valuation of assets. I think we have a rolling programme. It's to do with the valuations in the interim period within that programme. So where assets aren't valued every year, it's the sort of so no is the short answer. Not expecting there to be any material changes, but we are working through them.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you, Jan.
No, sorry, does that include highways? Has there been an ongoing one about the going on and on about the actual valuation of our assets? One of them being the highways infrastructure. So is that part of it as well?
Sorry, just repeat that one, Councillor Dale.
Sorry, I'll put it this way. Sorry. As part of what you were just talking about was the assets valuation. One of the big valuations we had to do was highways. Is that part of it?
It will. I think it's just all assets. Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Any final questions? Otherwise, members, we're being asked to agree the recommendations, which is note the changes. I won't read it all again, but we're happy, we're content. Good, thank you. Now, agenda item 6 is the Treasury Management Statement for the 26-27. And I'm just going to ask, is this one of the ones that came late?
It is, sir.
Right. So I think, Councillor Oliver, between you and Jan, it would be helpful to have some context on this before we open up for questions. Over to you. Well, if there's anything you need to say to set the scene about the Treasury Management Strategy Statement.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
shall I just introduce it and then again, if there's anything sort of salient that I've missed, Jan could add in. I mean, in simple terms, it's an annual report. It sets out the council's strategy for effectively managing its money, cash reserves, investment, lending, and borrowing. It's an annual report required by the Local Government Act, and it's part of the budget setting process to agree the Treasury Management Strategy. And the Audit Committee are responsible for the sort of effective scrutiny of that report. There are a number of component parts: the Treasury Management Strategy itself, the Treasury Management Policy Statement, the annual investment strategy, and the annual MRP, minimum reserve provision statement. And the recommendation in the report is that this committee recommends to council that they are adopted. I think I'll just say a few points about the Treasury Management Statement. It sets out how the council will manage its cash flow, use its cash resources, and fund its capital programme, which hopefully will be accepted and agreed at next month's council meeting. And it sets out the regulatory framework and the fact that the council is required to produce a balanced budget. It also sets out the current borrowing position, the future borrowing requirements, and sort of summarises the current investments. It then also talks about the external factors that are affecting particularly interest rates, but but also the wider economy. It talks about the annual investment strategy, so how the council uses its cash, which is mainly being used in recent years to offset the borrowing requirement, to keep that as low as possible. And then there's a whole sort of section of what I would probably describe as technical stuff that sort of summarises the various sort of tools and techniques that are used as part of the strategy. There's also a section about the loans to third parties, and another section about the HRA, the Housing Revenue Account, which is sort of a separate entity in terms of its accounting and its borrowing. And I think that probably summarises broadly what it's all about. Jan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
The Treasury with prudential indicators forecast within it are based on the draft budget proposals, which have not yet been presented to Cabinet or Council for approval. And just to be clear that those decisions are not for this committee, but for Cabinet to recommend to full Council for approval. But nothing further to add at this point, Chair. I'm sure that members will have questions.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, what I was looking for was quite a lot of the Treasury Management Strategy Statement is prescribed. You know, we're required by legislation to have this, that, and the other. What I was looking for was where there are any distinct differences in strategy that this council has adopted compared with the general run of councils? Jan, that's what I was looking for by way of an introduction. If you can help us on that.
Okay, so there are no significant changes proposed to the overall strategy. So we will continue to manage operations in the same way we do currently. So I think the committee might want to reflect on whether they're satisfied with the arrangements that we currently have in place for managing treasury management operations, which are described in detail in the report. The other key area that the committee would normally focus on are the prudential indicators, because at the end of the day, you know, the purpose of those prudential indicators is to provide assurance that the
Chris, we may need you to come in at this point.
Yeah, I think what Jan was probably going to say there is those indicators provide assurance on the sort of the level of borrowing, for instance, there's affordability indicators. So there's various statutory calculations that we need to do to ensure that our treasury management strategy is affordable and prudent. And that's what those indicators set out, and then we then monitor performance against those indicators throughout the year. They're in the quarterly reports to Cabinet, and also the report to this committee as part of the mid-year report on treasury management as well. And then there's an outturn report which comes back as well.
Okay. Right. Assuming we've lost Jan, Chris, you're in the hot seat for answering any questions from the committee.
That was well timed, wasn't it?
Are there any? I've got a question about under-borrowing. Can you just say something about that? I mean, I understand the concept, but are we, you know, I mean, it's something we've been doing for a number of years, i.e. using reserves to, you know, but can you say something about that?
On the borrowing strategy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no proposed change to the borrowing strategy for 26, 27, and just because of the economic forecast, the strategy is to continue to utilise internal borrowing where possible. So that's using council's reserves and internal resources in lieu of borrowing. So you are foregoing the investment, the return on investment that you could get, but obviously you're avoiding the more expensive cost of having to take out external borrowing. And obviously we use an external firm of treasury management advisors who help us formulate this policy, and we take their advice. We meet with them regularly, and they advise, you know, based on the economic outlook, what the council should be looking to do, and sort of discuss our plans and make sure that it is affordable, and obviously give advice. And so this strategy will take into account the advice that we've had from our TM advisors.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Hi, yeah. I would just also like to ask a question on borrowing, on the sustainability of it. You know, what point does the reliance on the borrowing of reserves become unsustainable? Because I'm not seeing that within the reports. You know, what early warning indicators are the members monitoring, you know, to reaching that point? And in addition to that, what other sustainable methods of funding, say, your capital programme, etc., are you looking at, rather than, because what I'm reading through the reports is to be able to do all of this funding, the borrowing strategy, it's just not sustainable. You know, with the under-borrowing, the external borrowing, the selling off assets to pay for capital, you know, at some point we have to stop. And just give me assurances on what you're doing around that. Thank
Yes.
you.
Well, I'll start, and then if there's anything sort of technical that Chris wants to add. I think, first of all, we are operating within a sort of statutory framework, and there are sort of lots of checks, and they're set out in the report, the authorised borrowing limits, for example, and we are well within the sort of range that would be deemed as acceptable. So to answer your point about at what point does it become unacceptable, I would say as we start to reach a point where we're in danger of breaching those limits, that would be unacceptable. And we've got no intention of doing that. So, I think that's the sort of the key measure. In terms of point on under-borrowing, I mean, it's a very sensible thing to do. It's basically, you've got the cash, so use it to offset the requirement to borrow, and the cost of borrowing will be inevitably higher than the income you could generate from investing that money, particularly in the current climate. And that's been the policy for a number of years now, and it has worked for a number of years. So, and then I think the wider point around paying for the capital programme, there is no other way really, I don't think, to pay for a sort of a feasible way anyway. The only other way to do it would be to use revenue funding to pay for capital expenditure, but it would just be like saying, to an individual householder, you've got to use your salary to pay for your house without taking out a mortgage. Now, not many of us would be in a position to do that. I've certainly never been in that position, so I think that it's a sort of that would be the analogy. So sensible, cautious borrowing within the authorised limits, I think, is probably the only way that we can, deliver the capital investment, keep on top of our estate and all of our fleets and the various capital assets that we have to maintain and eventually replace to provide the services that we provide as a council.
Right. Councillor Nicholson, is that sufficient for you? Because I've got a question coming in. Come on.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Oliver, in the Treasury Management Report, which we received here in the Audit Committee on the 26th of November, we were told in point 10.4 of the Treasury Management Report, the additional borrowing of around £235 million will be required in the second half of 2025-26, resulting in an overall borrowing position at the 31st of March of 943 million. We're now 2 months on today, and we're being told that the overall borrowing position at the 31st of March will be 995 million. So we've had a £52 million increase in borrowing requirement in 2 months, and that raises some alarm bells in my head anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to answer that, and if there's anything that Chris wants to add. The borrowing requirement, as you'll see sort of over time, as you go to more of these meetings, it changes every quarter, and that is largely to do, the capital programme is made up of some pretty significant projects, and the timescales on those projects change, and they change fairly dramatically, and sometimes that's to do with planning permission, sometimes it's to do with the procurement process, and there's a whole host of different reasons. But so at the point that each report is written, assumptions are made about when things will be delivered, when the cash will be required. So, for example, if we're looking at building a new school in your area, in Berwick, that's a big project. It's around £50 million. And there's a procurement process. There will be agreed stage payments in that procurement process. The process may slip by a few months. And if let's say there was a £10 million payment, which was agreed at the outset of that project, and the planning permission didn't get achieved on time, then that £10 million payment would slip. So that, I think, largely is the sort of thing that causes the differences in the borrowing requirement. And it is, you know, I think over time it just ebbs and flows, and you'll find at the beginning of the year, you know, each time there's a financial report, it sets out the changes in the capital program and the slippage and things that get brought forward and then happening sooner, but inevitably things get pushed back a bit. So, but what I would assure you is that this is not a sort of you know, the beginning of some sort of long-term trend. The process is set out. It will be within the capital finance requirements. The level of borrowing never gets to that figure because of slippage, but that, you know, the council is required to be prudent and to be prepared. So if suddenly everything got delivered very, very quickly, that would be the largest amount of money we would need to borrow. But, you know, in the 8 years I've been a councillor, that has never happened. It's never been, you know, even close to that limit.
But I think, and Councillor Lambert, you may want to come back on this, but I mean, I think the question, you used the analogy of ebbing and flowing. I think the query and the concern is this just flowing, i.e. it's always going up rather than ebbing, i.e. as you were saying just now, sometimes we don't need to borrow as much, whereas the indications seem to be that we're just continually borrowing. Councillor Lambert, is that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, it's a direction of travel, obviously, that, you know, that I'm looking at over the longer term. I'm looking back. And listen, I fully understand that, you know, the capital projects and, you know, Berwick School and absolutely on it. But, you know, it is just when you see a 6% variance in your budget, having been involved in quite a lot of businesses, if I went to my board owners and said to them that we've got a 6% variance, I usually had some very tough questions to answer. You know, they want to know, you know, we don't want bad news, was always the thing. If something's not right, let's get it out there in the front and deal with it. But it just slightly concerns me that in 2 months in this Treasury Management Report, suddenly we've seen this huge increase in £52 million worth of borrowing requirement by the year end. Whether or not that's what transpires at the end of March or not, I fully accept, you know, that there is slippage, things get reprofiled.
I understand that point, but I would rather that the council took a prudent approach and forecast the worst case scenario, and then I think a variance in budget figures is better than an adverse variance between a budgeted figure and the actual outcome. Because what would be worse would be a situation where we were forecasting one figure and we overshot it and we weren't prepared for that. And I would rather we take a prudent approach and just basically look at what we might need. And that's what we're required to do. I mean, it's all, you know, it's the knowledge of each project. It's a complex process that have to pull together a lot of different sort of timings on every individual line in the capital programme to calculate this figure, and it's all based on best estimates at that point in time, and they change. Right. So I think it's better to be prudent.
I think we've got Jan back on live, and she's keen to contribute.
The connection from the council chamber is really poor. I am sorry, I'm not sure if you can still hear me, but I did just want to briefly come back to Councillor Lambert's point. I think we're perhaps talking at cross purposes. The figure that Councillor Lambert is referring to in the report that came to the committee in November is the forecast at the 31st of March 2026, which was 942,000. In the report that you have in front of you today, the forecast is at 27. That is the £995 million figure. So you're comparing two different financial years, Councillor Lambert.
With respect, Jan, no, I'm not. The report that we got in this audit committee on the 26th of November was the Treasury Management Report up until 31st of March 26. And the report that you sent us on Monday night that we got, that is the same.
That's right.
That's the same. It's 31st of March 26 Treasury Management Report.
No. The figure of £995 is the figure at the end of 2026-27 financial year. It's a different financial year. So the first figure, 942, is 31st of March 2026.
Right.
Report relates to 526 financial year. The 995 million is at the end of 2026-27.
Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Councillor Lambert a bit of time just to digest whatever Jan was saying. I'm going to bring Councillor Dale in, and then Councillor Lambert, you can come back if you need to. Councillor Dale.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just once again, we got the papers quite late, very late, and to actually take on all these and check them through and everything has been quite difficult. But can I just go on to Appendix 4? So one of the things about the revenue, I'm worried about the cost to the revenue account, the cost of the borrowing to the revenue account, because, sorry, I don't know if you can hear or not, because I think, because one of our main things is to deliver services to the people, the residents of Northumberland, and obviously that is done through the revenue account, majority of the everyday service delivery. Now, if you look on Appendix 4, so it's the third page, and you've got the ratio financing cost to net revenue stream. And it's going up and up and up. So 24-25, 16.1%, 25-26, 13.7%, and then estimate for 26-27 is 18.6, and then it goes up and up again. And I have a concern about the actual cost to the revenue account of our borrowing. So that is one of the things. And then the other side is...
Let's just pause on that one. Chris, can you help Councillor Dale on that point?
Could we just clarify which table, which page?
It's Appendix 4.
Yeah.
It's the third page, which is ratios financing cost to net revenue stream.
The third page or the first page?
So there isn't a page on mine?
Oh, okay.
I haven't got a page number.
Right.
Sorry, I can't help.
The third page.
Third page.
Thank you.
I'll just come in on that one.
Yeah.
I'll just say that we've actually got two indicators there, Councillor Dale. So
Sorry?
we've got two indicators for, in relation to this. This is the ratio of finance and cost to net revenue stream. So we've got the statutory indicator, which is the first one. We then publish a local indicator, which takes account of the interest received from third parties. Because we think that's a more meaningful indicator for us, because a significant amount of our, as you know, borrowing relates to those sort of loans to third parties where we receive the principal and interest back. So the second indicator is the more meaningful one where you can see that's adjusted for those loans to third parties.
I think the thing is, though, obviously, the worrying thing is it's going against the amount of interest we're paying into the revenue account. And just the other side of the coin is we're borrowing. Just out of interest, I've got a loan which I looked at and I thought, oh my gosh, and it's the LEP. And it's dated, I think it's £11 million. So I'm just saying, I know we're borrowing, but are we gathering in our loans?
Yeah, the only issue we've had with any loan recovery was when the council granted the airport a holiday during COVID, when obviously planes stopped flying, and that's all, you know, that's all sort of being unwound now. So there are no issues with the loans to the LEP or to anybody else.
I think my thing is, I think the LEP has been subsumed by NECA.
Yeah, so it was, this
so
was,
basically our loan
yeah.
sits with NECA.
this, I think if I'm right, and Jan will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is, is effectively underpinned by business rates income, and it was all part of the development of the fantastic project, the sites in preparation for what is now the QTS Blackstone area around the NEP, the funding. So it was the CAMUS developments in the various stages of that. I don't know the precise detail, but basically we as a council lent the money to the LEP to pay for the development and preparation, and then it was a part of a sort of enterprise zone, and I think we are being repaid that money, and then in time we will then collect more business rates as well. So it's been a tremendous success.
Okay. Now, members, two things. First of all, we had some risk training this morning, and I think the next bit of training that we'll give ourselves is on treasury management. And if we can do that relatively soon, it'll be relevant to the next round of treasury management material that comes before us. Now, what we're being asked this morning is, do we agree the strategy being taken in terms of treasury management? Some of it is prescribed, some of it, there is no choice, some of it, there is some leeway for the council to take various actions. So we've had some challenges on some of the borrowing, which are legitimate. But the question we're being asked is, do we, in general terms, agree with the treasury management approach? So I'm just going to pause there. Councillor Lambert, we may need to take the discussion you were having with Jan to be resolved at another time, unless there's anything you wanted to say to finish off.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the beauty, and I would say thank you for the staff, of these minutes and the printed papers is that, in our Treasury and Management report on Wednesday, the 26th of November, it was quite clear at point 10.4 that required in the second half of 25-26, resulting in an overall borrowing position at the 31st of March 2026 of around £943 million. That was what we were told 2 months ago. So the same report today, the current borrowing position, Council's borrowing at 30th November 25, and then total borrowing has increased by 46.47 million up to at the 30th November 25, and then, going forward to 2026, the year-end figure is expected to be around £995 million. Well, if this is the report we've got in front of us, so Jan may well be talking about year-end 2027, but this is what we have been presented.
Indeed. So, given that Jan doesn't seem to be with us anymore, so there are two ways we can deal with this, and one of which is, and I think this is for the minutes, that we get the officers, whether it's Jan or Chris or whoever, to come back and explain whether or not, we're just misunderstanding something, and we may be, and if we're not misunderstanding, then some explanation of
send a written response to all.
A written response, yeah. I'm not sure we can resolve it at this meeting, and particularly with all these IT problems. Councillor Lambert, are you content with that? I mean, I think the point you've made about the increase over a short period of time is one that's well made, and I think we will want officers to address that in the written response.
I was just going to, do you want me to just come in there,
Yeah.
Chair? Yeah, obviously that it's a forecast at a point in time, and I suppose that the borrowing figure is always a snapshot in a point in time, and it's dependent on a lot of things, as Nick, Councillor Oliver touched on earlier, capital programme, also maturity of other borrowing, and you know, when cash flow, when you actually need to take new borrowing out. What I'll do, I don't have the detail right now, but I can speak to the team and find out the main differences for that variation in the two figures, and I'm happy to provide a response to the committee.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, like I say,
Right.
you know, the thing that, you know, raised the red flag with me, we're looking at only 2 months ahead. We're looking at the end of March. You know, it's 2 months ahead.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, okay, so we've had the response from the officers, which is helpful.
Because some
I'm
of it
going to
could...
move us on.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to move us on. So I'm going to ask, are we content that the Treasury Management Statement and the propositions set within it are ones that we're sufficiently content with to agree? Okay. And we've got in the minutes that we need this bottomed out. Okay. Right, members, I'm going to move us on to the risk management update. And Councillor Oliver, you know, you should know that everyone's very keen to ask questions about risk on the basis of the very good presentation we had this morning from an external trainer. So,
So before you proceed,
yes,
sir, there
yeah.
are
yes,
a lot of pink papers attached to,
yeah,
which include much of the risk stuff.
yeah,
If members' enthusiasm means they're likely to want to go into that detail, that's absolutely fine, but we should go into closed session if that is the case because of some of the
yeah.
the commercial confidentiality of some of those issues.
Right. So,
Can I-
as Mr. Gerrard's just advised us, if we want to go into the detail that's set out on the pink papers at the back, then we're going to have to move into a closed session, and members of the public and members of the press will have to leave. However, it may be that we can have a sufficiently robust conversation without straying into the pink papers.
Principle or detail, I think is the question, sir.
Yeah. So the pink papers have the detail. So if people want to go into the detail, then we're going to have to go into private session. If we're talking about the principles set out in the risk, then we'll stay in the public session. Councillor Dale.
I was just maybe we could change the agenda item to the end,
I think that's a good suggestion.
and then we can, because I would hate to think after all our training
Yes.
later that actually we don't get that opportunity to put into practice or have a good look. So I think that if we could move this agenda to the last agenda item, that would be a good way forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Anne. That's a good point. So what we will do is we will move on to the rest of the items, and then, if necessary, come back to risk at the end. I apologise to the gentlemen of the press who may have to stay for longer than you initially planned. Right. Right. So we have the corporate fraud update, which is agenda item 8. And I think, Amy, you're going to present this. Councillor Oliver's going to say.
I'll just do a very brief introduction and then hand over. I mean, basically, this report sets out the work that our in-house anti-fraud team have done in the period between the 1st of April and the 30th of September. So that's the first 6 months of the financial year. The team operates as part of the wider internal audit function. And the table on paragraph in paragraph 4.5, I think, sort of sets out the areas where the work has been focused, and you'll see over 47% on council tax, 39% on housing. I thought the sort of interesting information about the number of cases opened and the number of cases closed and why they're different. And then there's a bit about sort of the financial impact and where it's greatest, particularly around sort of housing. I think the main area, and I think we've talked in the past about the amount of housing stock that the team are able to protect and keep as social housing rather than allow to be fraudulently purchased and then be lost to the wider sort of community. And that's not just the council, that's also the work they do for the external housing providers. So I think that's really great work. So I'll stop there, and you know, that's just by way of an introduction.
Right. Now this normally generates some good discussion. It's an area that councillors quite rightly feel strongly about in terms of representing their constituents. So, and Amy, you're on hand to have to handle the detail of the questions. Right, and Kevin, right. Councillor Dale.
Can I say just thank you very much. Thank you for the report and well done, because actually I think it must be 10, 12 years since, it's probably 12 years since this initiative was started. And actually over that period of time, the recognition that the team have had from actually getting external people in to come and do their work. And that to me is a real bonus. So you've got Benicia in, Gen 2 in, Carbon in. So it shows you the value of this service, that not only to the county council, but actually to the external bodies. And I think that's very good. And actually the value that you're achieving is incredible. I think the single one, obviously, is the single council tax, single person discount. And that, to me, is always going to be a very live position. And I do have people who report it to me, actually. I just report things on. So you've got an enormous range of issues you're looking at, investigations. So I could just say I recommend this court report, because actually I think you're doing a really good job as well, and well done.
Right. Was there a question? No, there was just an endorsement. Right, okay. No. Councillor Swinburne, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I too welcome this report and just highlight, as has been mentioned, it's not just the County Council on housing, but it covers Carbon, Benicia and Gen 2. And the figure here of 2.4 million, which has been highlighted and recovered, is nothing to be sniffed at. But it just gives me concern as to if that's what's been recovered, what more can be recovered. But one of the questions that I do have, which concerns me on our report, page 99, and the report itself, page 5, which is on social housing. And it relates to the right to buy. And it mentions that there's, for some reason, been a surge in applications on the right to buy. And I just wanted to ask if they're aware of any particular reason behind why there's been a sudden surge on right to buys, if they've got any more information about that, because it does concern me why we suddenly have a surge on there. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, Councillor Swinburne. Amy, keep me right, just in case I go slightly wrong. But there was a change in the so when you a right to buy application, there was a certain discount which can be applied. That discount was reduced greatly in the, I think it was in the budget in 2024. And what we saw was a huge reduction in that discount that was able to be awarded. So what we then saw was a surge in the applications, clearly from applicants trying to make the most of the increased reduction before it disappeared. So what we saw was an influx of applications, obviously trying to maximise that opportunity before the window shut. And what we've now seen is the applications drop back down to their anticipated levels. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dale? No? You're right? Okay. I think Kevin Amy, we've asked this question before. If you have one more counter-fraud officer, you know, would you increase the amount of anti-fraud activity and therefore the amount of monies recovered? I mean, do you think about those sorts of issues?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's something which Amy and I regularly discuss. And I think, Chair, the key is getting the balance right. So we know at the moment the team are busy, but it's not unachievable. And I think the danger is we take on another employee and we don't get the, you know, we don't find the work to do that. So it is a balancing act which we do regularly have those. Every time Amy and I have a one-to-one, we sort of talk around this. So it's something which we keep a watching brief on, Chair. But I don't think there's sufficient pressure at the moment to warrant that additional sort of increase to our establishment. But it's something that we do regularly keep an eye on.
Right. Okay. And we look at this annually, don't we?
This report comes twice a year, so this is the first 6 months of the year, and you'll get the annual report in May.
Right. Okay. So we might ask the same question in 6 months' time.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on the corporate fraud interim report? As Councillor Dale was saying, you know, this is good to see. And it's not just about the council recovering monies, it's also demonstrating to people in Northumberland that, you know, the council has got some robust systems and takes robust actions to keep people honest. Right, we're being asked to note the work, particularly because we have a specific role in oversight of counter-fraud activity. So we're happy to note that report and thank Kevin and Amy and the team for all the good work. Right, members, we're now on agenda item 9. Kevin, I'm just wondering, 9, 10 and 11, do we take these together or would it confuse things? I mean, I'm happy to take them separately.
Happy, whichever way, Chair.
Well, let's stay with the agenda rather than confuse anyone further, including me. Right, so we've got the interim monitoring statement of this year's audit plan. Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the interim monitoring statement for this year's internal audit plan as at the end of Q3. And this is a report which we bring to Audit and Standards Committee as part of your role in overseeing the work of internal audit and the internal audit function. The report is in the standard format that hopefully members are used to sort of seeing now. And on page 104 of the papers, we'll have some sort of summary information and some metric information there just in terms of progress against the plan and sort of activity against the originally planned audit plan from March 25. And then the appendix to the report, which starts on page 107, just takes every item that was in the original plan for the year and shows the current status of that as at the end of December. It also shows pieces of work which have been added, which weren't part of the original plan, and items where we are proposing that work may move into next year as reprogrammed, just to give that flexibility to allow us to give the optimum service and value added to the organisation. Chair, I probably wouldn't propose to say too much more than that, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Okay, Councillor Dale.
Yeah, just very quickly. Just to mention on Appendix 1, page 1, just at the top, you've got some additional unplanned work. And has that been considerable, or is it, I mean, because obviously it's having an impact on your work or on the plan. And I think the interesting one is obviously free school meals campaign, because that's very much to do with our inequalities priority. But also the last one is review of systems and processes of service area following investigation. And you've given it limited assurance. I presume work will be ongoing with that and you'll come back in a report at a later date.
Yes, Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Dale. Yes. We always know that service areas will approach us during the year. We just don't necessarily know what it will be. So yes, as in previous years, we have had additional items which have come in. The free school meals work, which you touch on, yes, we did that. And we that was a really good piece of work with some really substantial outcomes. And you're quite correct that the service area in question got a limited assurance report that will come through Audit and Standards Committee, I beg your pardon, in May as part of that normal key outcomes from our reports which you usually receive. So that will come in there, and it will also feature in the annual opinion when that also comes to you in May as well, with a bit further detail on that. But yes, what is good from my perspective is obviously we did that work, but we are continuing to work with that service to help them put some corrective measures in place. And it's work which they've sort of commented back to say how much they've valued the contribution of the team to sort of thank you. And we haven't just given them a list of problems and then walked away. We're actually trying to help them deliver it in the best possible way as well.
Okay. Councillor Swinburne?
Thanks, Chair. Kevin, I'm not sure if you can answer this one, but it relates to page 112, education and skills. And schools financial value standard, lots of other work that's carried out. But it does say a sample of county schools. Now, within Northumberland, we have academies, we have faith schools, etc. And we do a lot of work and support with those schools. But when it comes to any assurance work, etc., do you know what happens with those non-local authority schools with regards to any of the work that we carry out with the county schools for any of those assurance and checking, etc., that we do with our county schools? Are you aware of anything that goes on with those?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Swinburne. The short answer is no. So our jurisdiction begins and ends with those schools which are maintained by the county council. So we have no rights of access to academies, for example, because they are not within our jurisdiction. So we, as far as the locally maintained schools go, yes, we undertake a sample every year. You may remember we've spoken when we prepared the audit plan for this year. We added additional resource in to cover more of the schools, given the size and the sort of value of transactions, particularly which go through our schools, and the importance of schools. But then what we always try and do is make sure that any themes that come out of that work are disseminated to all schools, whether they've had a visit or not. But that ends with those which are maintained by the county. So it doesn't include academies who are essentially their own, they have their own jurisdiction.
Right. Kevin, I just had a very quick question, which I don't think we should try and get into now, but the review on business rates, which is page 113, that's work that's currently in progress. It would be helpful to know at some point if that's taking account of the changes that central government intend with regard to business rates. So if we can pick up on that outside of the meeting, but it's just, yeah.
Absolutely, Chair, yes. And then that report again will come back through the committee so we can address that if that is the case.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Right, there are no further questions on agenda item 9. We're being asked to agree the recommendation, which is that we've noted and considered the progress set out, and we've asked some sensible questions. We're agreed? Yep, thank you. Agenda item 10 is the audit plan for 26, according to the papers it says 2026 to 2, but I assume that's 2026 to 27. Kevin, over to you again.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a short report. This is one which we bring to the committee each January, just to outline the process that we are currently embarking upon in preparation of the internal audit plan for 26-27. That will come to you as the committee in March for approval. But it's just rather than that arrive out of the blue, it's just a bit of the background in terms of how we go about putting that internal audit plan together, the engagement that we undertake, the risk assessment process that we undertake, and how that all comes together before that's presented to you for approval in March. So again, I think primarily paragraph 4.9 at the sort of the bottom of page 116 on to page 117 is the main sort of bullets in terms of the stages involved in that, which then results in that plan coming to you for approval. As part of that, as a stakeholder, Audit and Standards Committee are invited to sort of suggest any possible areas for consideration for inclusion in that plan. And as in previous years, Chair, it is my intention to have a session with Audit Committee ahead of the March meeting, just so we can talk through some of the mechanics of this in a bit of detail. But happy to take any questions on the process, Chair.
No, and that, I don't know if, I'm trying to think, were new members of this committee, so this time last year, did we had a similar discussion?
Yes. You did, sir.
We did, right. Okay, so and it's very sensible to do that, yeah. Are there any questions on the update that Kevin's provided? No, I mean, it's a sensible outline, and again, we're just being asked to note and agree what's proposed. And then we come to agenda item 11, which is us as the group audit committee. So this includes the responsibilities for exercising audit over Advanced Northumberland in particular. And I've attended their most recent audit committee meeting, as Kevin has as well, to see, you know, what sort of progress they're making in terms of establishing robust audit and assurance practices. And I'm happy to give an update on that as we go through this. Kevin, do you want to take us through this first?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is, it's quite a short report, Chair, and as has been sort of agreed previously in terms of the Group Audit Committee function, we bring just a quarterly update to give a sort of a short update in terms of internal audit progress within active group entities, of which Advanced Northumberland is currently the only one. And at the previous report, we brought a copy of the plan for the year, and then we just sort of take updates to that to Advanced Northumberland's Audit Committee, as you would imagine. There were 2 audit committees at Advance since that report back to you as Group Audit Committee, which are detailed in the report. Within the 22nd of October, we haven't actually finalised any audit reports that were reported to that meeting. And then the meeting on the 5th of December was primarily to receive the accounts and agree the accounts, which I know you were obviously in attendance at, Chair. And then the rest of the report just talks a little bit around that in terms of assurance to Group Audit Committee around Advanced Northumberland filing all of the accounts correctly in that time at Companies House and meeting all of those statutory obligations, and the change in the chair of Advanced Northumberland's Audit Committee following the appointment of the previous chair as chair of the board, which is at 4.6. I don't really propose to say any more than that, Chair, but you may wish to add a little bit from your perspective in terms of attending the meetings as well.
Okay, thank you. So I do have a suggestion, but I'm going to go to Councillor Dale first.
Right, sorry, thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin. I'll tell you what I want to know. I know we do borrow money, obviously, to Advance, and in some cases to do work on behalf of the council. The council aren't able to do. My request is, when you're doing the audit report, do you see that they're giving value for money, for the money that they are passing, and all those types of assurance that we, as a council, would be looking at our own council? What work do you do with our Advance, on that subject? Because I think it's, we can keep on borrowing money to people, or lending people money to do work, but we want to be assured that actually it's been spent to the best for our residents, with the outcome.
I'm just, Mr. Gerrard's just, yeah, there's an oversight committee formed of the
Yes, I know
cabinet
that.
that exercises some of that responsibility.
And that'll hopefully come through the audit in the end. Yes.
I think, Chair, all I would, to answer Councillor Dale's question, I think the short answer is yes.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
The same principles would apply to the County Council's internal audit. We would do exactly the same to Advance as their internal auditors as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Councillor Swinburne.
Chair, if I can just point out and just mention to Councillor Dale that Advance will be coming to Corporate Services Scrutiny Committee as well within the coming months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's helpful, thank you. So, and I'm taking on board that point. I mean, one of the things that the audit committee shouldn't do is try to replicate the work of other functions within the council, other governance arrangements. But it does strike me that this is a committee that's had not a great deal of sight of Advance Northumberland because, you know, this is a new committee. And so I'm wondering if, not for resolution now, but we can find a way of giving this committee the opportunity to better understand the governance arrangements that sit above Advance Northumberland at a future meeting. Because we did take a report probably March 2025, which was giving the council an update against a local government association review of Advance, which was generally positive. And that was, so that's, let's say that's 12 months ago. It wouldn't be, I think, unreasonable to come back and say 12 months further on, how are things going? What's the progress? So we might shape it in that way. Now, say that's the proposition. I'm not going to try and resolve that now, and I may need to discuss with officers. You know, how do we do this? Councillor Dale, you.
Yeah, can I just take just to remember that we did have an agreement in March with Advance and its equity, etc. That hasn't gone forward. So I just think that all of it together needs to be. We can have a better understanding report on that. Right,
Councillor Oliver.
Chair, may I?
Sorry, Jan. All right, here we are.
Sorry. I am in and out of this meeting, Chair. I do apologise with the connection being a bit unreliable. Can I just say that on that last point, Council delegated authority to me to implement the restructuring subject to completing further due diligence. That work is still in train, and I'm very happy as part of an update report on the overall governance arrangements for Advance Northumberland to set out those arrangements that were referenced in that report to Council for monitoring, borrowing, etc. But the decision itself is an executive decision which has been delegated to me. I have not yet exercised that delegated authority because that work on the extended due diligence is still ongoing, although I expect it to be brought to a conclusion fairly soon. I hope that's helpful to Councillor Dale.
Thank you, John. That's very helpful.
Councillor Dale is beaming with satisfaction at that response. No, that would be helpful. Okay. Kevin, what are we being asked to do on this one? We're just noting the...
Yes, just in terms of you as Group Audit Committee receiving that update, I think... Sorry, to come back to your point, Chair, I think that's valid. At the March meeting of this committee, we also have the work programme for the coming year, so we can have a look at how Group Audit Committee factors into that to agree that work programme for the coming year, just so that we'll make sure that you as a committee are meeting those responsibilities as you feel you need to.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Right, so we've agreed those recommendations. So we're now moving, I think we'll keep going. We're now moving to external auditors. So we've got Mr. Kirkham and Mr. Dearden from Forvis Mazars. And the first item is, I think you're going to present us with a certificate, or I may have misread that. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is our attempt to get all members of the committee beaming with satisfaction. No doubt members will let me know how that goes. We're just sharing with you an audit certificate. It is already published on the County Council's website, and it's an audit certificate formally closing the 22-23 audit. The members will be able to see that it's quite late. All audit suppliers were awaiting confirmation from the National Audit Office that they did not intend to carry out any further group procedures on the 22-23 financial year, and we didn't receive that confirmation until, 23-24. We didn't receive that confirmation until just before we issued the letter. So that's the reason for the delay, and the certificate formally closes that year's audit, Chair.
Okay. So we're being asked to note the audit certificate, and we're noting it. Thank you. And then we've got your follow-up letter. Again, back to you.
Yes, Chair. When the committee was considering the statement of accounts earlier, referring back to the previous meeting of the committee, we issued our audit completion report, and we told the group that we would report any matters that were arising between the audit completion report and the completion of all of our audit procedures. So we said in our report that there were some items where our testing was incomplete. We've carried out that work now, and we're in a position to issue that letter, but also proceed to write the audit opinion, which we're intending to do on the 2nd of February. And we've got plans underway to do that. So just for information, Chair.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear, that's the letter dated the 20th of January, is that correct? Yep. Right. We're being asked to note the follow-up letter. If there are any questions, now would be the time. Nope, we're noting the letter. Thank you. And final point from you, Mark, is the annual report. So progress on that.
The annual audit report will be updated when we've issued the opinion. So the key part to finalise our annual audits report is the inclusion of the opinion date. So we can't proceed with that until the opinion's actually signed. So it's a formality, but it can't be issued as a final until the opinion has been issued.
Right.
So that's what we'll do.
Okay. And a general question in terms of the work that you and Campbell are doing, you're having good levels of cooperation from the council in terms of seeking information and having discussions.
Consistently good, Chair. No obstacles, and we get clear responses to our audit queries. We're mindful of the other responsibilities and priorities that management and other officers have got, so we try not to get in the way. We are aware that looking after community, looking after residents and visitors is far more important than replying to an external auditor, so we carry out our challenges with that in mind, but we've had no obstacles and we're very happy with the level of cooperation we get.
Thank you. That's good to hear. And if Jan was still on the line, I'm sure she'd be glad to hear it as well. She may still be here.
She is still on the line.
She's still here, right. Okay. Now we've just got a couple of bits of business to tidy up, and then we're coming back to this risk discussion. So the action log, so this is the sort of forward look of the work we're going to be doing going forward. Kevin, can you help us on this one?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think on page 130 and on, we've sort of got the couple of actions which are registered there, which I know we've touched on at the beginning of the meeting. And then obviously for the remainder of the year, we only have the March meeting left now. So in accordance with the work programme there, just the scheduled items which will be on the agenda for the March meeting. And as I say, one of the items on there is the work programme for the coming year. So from March onwards, obviously that section will be a little bit longer, showing out the meetings throughout the remainder of the year, but obviously at the moment there's only one.
Okay. Any questions on the work programme or the action list? Councillor Swinburne.
Can I just check on the action list? It does say 24th of the 9th, 2011.
Yeah.
I think you'll find it's a typo, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to go back over the last 15 years. Thanks very much.
I have not been here that long.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one that we discussed. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Now, I've been advised, I haven't been made aware of any urgent business, so there is no urgent business. And the date of the next meeting is 25th of March at the normal time of 10:15. So before we dive into the risk discussion, and I think we are at this point going to go into closed session. But before we do, on behalf of the committee, I would like to express our best wishes and thanks to Jan Willis, our Section 151 officer, who's moving on. And personally, as a member of the Audit Committee, I was here in 2020, 2021, and this council is a more stable, better governed, more robustly managed outfit than it was. And a good deal of that, I think, is down to the hard work and the integrity that Jan has brought to her role. So, Jan, thank you very much for your service, as they say. And I'm assuming that the committee joins me in wishing her well. Agreed. Jan, if you wanted to say anything, you can. If you're overcome with emotion, we'll understand.
Well, thank you, Chair. That's very kind. It's been a pleasure and a privilege working with you all. And I heartily concur that I leave the council in much better shape than I found it when I arrived 5 years ago. And this committee have played a key role in, and you as well have played a key role in that as well. So I think we can all give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back for the progress that we've made. But it's been a pleasure.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So we're now moving into closed session to discuss the risk issues. So I'm afraid certain members of the audience have to leave.
Keep Jan on.
Yes.